Important. The district resident. Housing authority was the power. And housing
6 to 8 months, and the conditions there have absolutely been abysmal. I'm shocked. I'm horrified by the rats. And the conditions of these apartments and the conditions in which senior citizens are living. How much jurisdiction does your agency have over this? And how can we work together with all the incorporating agencies to possibly solve this problem? And what are the plans? Because I know most of that that's not in the senior tower has been closed. Thank you.
No, thank you. So, I am not as familiar with DHCD's involvement with Gotham Terrace. But what I can do is that, we will look into it. So we'll give you, Commissioner, you give us all your information. We will absolutely look into it, see, if we have dollars in that deal. And, if there's anything you can do, I just don't know enough about it right now. But we will look into it, I promise you that, okay?
Thank
Thank you. If you get your information to, Mr. Gaines, we will get back with you, as soon as possible. We'll reach out, we'll talk to the staff, your response. So,
Thank you.
thank you for being attentive, Commissioner, we appreciate you.
Of course.
I saw the gentleman's hand over there. I'll get you in a second, man. Yes, sir.
John Coleman, Ward 7.
Yes.
Just wondering what transpired over the past week with the HVAC program and the reversal of how candidates were being selected.
What's the question? Can you give the question once more about HVAC?
Yeah, what changed in the past week where there was a reversal of how people were selected for receiving funds from HVAC?
So, a decision was made to go to a lottery system to help sort of give the, HVAC applicants, a little more, authority when it comes to selecting a home, a lender, and those things. And so we looked at, some different processes in a lottery. We believe was a really good process. We held a lottery last Friday, where we were able to fund a substantial amount, if not almost everyone who entered. We had parameters in the program that you had to submit a ratified contract, and you had to have an updated NOE. And we vetted that process. The team went through it several times. We got to the people who had NOEs and ratified contracts, and we funded almost all of them. So that information, the NOE holders who had ratified contracts were notified Friday and Monday. The HFA, who is housed here, as well as the Greater Washington Urban League, have been notified. Each of the applicants have gotten a notice, and we are ready to fund these loans, get these people into new homes.
So what happened in the change from it was submit your contracts on the 8th of November and you would be able to get your funds and they would be reserved to you, to changing to a lottery system to where it really wasn't communicated to anyone that was part of the program?
So if you actually go back to the folk who got the notice on the 25th, it did not say you will be funded. If you go back and look at it, it did not say that. It said if selected. So that was the lottery. It actually did say, I got a few phone calls on it, but it said that. So it was never communicated that you would be guaranteed if you got that notice on the 25th, because there were conditions. You had to submit, you had to have a current NOE and a ratified contract, and it said if selected. That was the lottery. Now, if there are additional funds available or all of these funds are spent, we'll probably have a subsequent lottery. But I'm very pleased with the outcome. We funded a couple of hundred homeowners, and I think everyone who got that notice on Friday and then yesterday and Monday, they're very, very happy. We got a few calls, but we cleared some things up, and we're ready to move forward to fund all of these loans.
I have to say, I feel the opposite from some people, because we have people that we know that went under contract, did their home inspection, spent money, homeowners that spent money to get their house in a condition that's acceptable for HVAC, only to find out that they were not going to get funded. And the messaging was, and we felt like it was clear that those people weren't going to get selected or they're going to go into the lottery. That was very unclear from the messaging coming out from the home authority.
Well, thank you so much for your comments. We appreciate it as we move forward with this lottery process. This is a learning experience. We'll probably, we have to tweak a few things. We probably will, but I think it was pretty successful.
So is there going to be any refunds for people that have spent money on home inspections and stuff like that?
I don't think the district is liable for that, so. But Yes, sir. You had, I'm sorry, this lady, you know, sorry, yes, ma'am.
Well, I have to agree with him, but there was a notice sent out to those people who had gotten their EOEs you have to submit your contract by the 8th.
Yep.
And so that will mean that you had guaranteed to receive the funds.
Yep.
And if you didn't, then they notified you in the email that you will be put on the lottery. So if they had a ratified contract and everything and your vendor
Yep.
submitted the application to them, you were fine, you're
Yep.
fully funded. But it was confusing about the lottery piece and it did throw some people without getting, but that was not good.
Yeah.
And then the question I have, so I just wanted to answer that question. The question I had for you was the amount of funding that was previously stated that the 206. And then in the EOE, it stated that only 30% of the contract or the price of the home, they would only get, so that's the part I'm confused about. Why did you all change from the full 206 to 30% of the price?
We didn't change that. And actually, we didn't change that.
Okay,
There's still 202,000 plus closing with max out to 206. So they're still there. And the only thing that we changed, we said that the HPAP loan, which is a second trust,
right,
cannot exceed the first trust.
right.
It's the only change. So here's the thing. I think there's a lot of misinformation out there because I think people want what they want. They want to hear what they want. But those are just the facts. Our letter did not guarantee you, that first email on the 25th was not a guarantee. It did not say you're guaranteed to get these funds. It said, you must submit these documents and if selected.
So
That means if selected.
so
Second part, again, it's just the first trust would not exceed. But I want to go to someone else. Yes, sir. You had a comment or a question like that?
Yeah, I appreciate it. The difficult aspect is the lottery system. Right, so up until last year, there was a very specific way of how business was going to happen. So I guess the powers that be, whoever decided, said, hey, you know what? We've had an entire year to wait till this moment. Literally, week before, that we're gonna go into the lottery system. It's one of those where you go, well, how did that come to be? Who thought that would be a great idea? And ultimately, why wasn't that done 7-8 months ago?
Well, the decision was made. The lottery was held, and I think it was very successful. I don't believe in trying to revisit past who, what, why, and how. I think by that, I'm sorry.
Because I would like to say, this is the part where we need to look back, see what actually happened. There are a lot of people who did submit contracts, who did not get selected, didn't go with the winner, had their NOV and had a contract. So I think it's important when you stay very successful, depending on who you speak with, who you talk to. It's important that you give full selection.
Sure. I don't think that this listening session is the forum for that. I appreciate the comments, and I'm sure
So are you all gonna set up the time that it would be in?
I think that the director can make that call. But right now, we're in a listening session. I don't want this to be a back and forward on HPAP. I think I've laid out what was done, what happened. And I actually have evidence that the lion's share of the people that applied were funded.
But
So
last year, again, it's.
yes, fair, but if you want to have a conversation afterwards, we can. I don't want to go back and forth. I have a lot of people online, they have questions. This is a listening session. I've heard you, and I think moving forward, sure, there may be some things we could do a little differently. But right now, where we are, we have enough funding for the people who applied, and those numbers will probably be shared over the next day or so. The lottery was random, so it wasn't like we selected people that we knew or we liked. It was very random. We used random.org, and it was successful. So,
And how do you confirm that people who submitted the information, like you said, you have the full list?
oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah.
Will that be shared publicly?
Oh, well, we'll see what we need to share with the public. Okay? I don't want to get into all of the logistics of it and everything, because I mean, you're trying to help me go down this deep hole, and I don't want to do that. I'm not trying to be rude, but there will be an opportunity for all of that.
Okay, so
Okay?
you said there's an opportunity to that. You got.
Again, you're trying to pigeonhole me, and I don't
I'm
want,
not
I
trying to
don't,
pigeonhole you. What you bring up is a very important fact in all this. And it's important that whoever made those decisions, it's like you said, successful or not, how the debrief goes, they need to answer the question. How did you come to that decision to make the lottery almost 2 weeks prior to everything being due? Why was it done then? Please get back to your people who made that decision. Sure. It was very successful.
thank you so much for your comments. I appreciate it. Is there anyone else? Yes, sir.
How you doing?
I'm blessed, bro. And yourself?
Mr. Key.
Mr. Key, the play?
I live in Ward One.
Okay.
Live here all my life. I'm a parent. Everybody up in 15th Street.
Okay.
I became disabled in 2018. Prior to that, I was working with the district government as far as paying my regular parking and things and everything. I probably need to reach out to the DC Housing Authority, but I don't believe that they'll actually be able to help me. Most of the schools are pretty much closed. And I don't think they reach out to people that are disabled and based income and things like that. I registered with your inclusionary zoning program, which I mentioned the reviews. Those are also available. But when I go on search.org for the apartments and I put in my income with the calculator, it's specifically one section, one of the sections. I didn't see any new construction.
We don't discriminate when it comes to IZ and ADU. We absolutely don't discriminate, so we have to talk about that. If you're saying, you said it's only on one side of town, one location.
Well, in the section, but what I'm saying is not with construction and affordable units.
Yes.
They're building all across the city, but the ones that I see are specifically located on the side.
So IZ is, where when a developer in the city builds, they have to have a certain number of units. And so that building has to have a certain number of IC units. And that's across the city, right? That's not in one particular section.
No, that's it. That's across the city, but based on the income.
But the income again is general, it's not based upon one community. Maybe you and I should talk offline a little bit, because I'm not really, because the way IZ work is, again, is random. It's not, what the developers have to have is something that's available for IZ at different income levels.
So one disability check.
Okay,
So I'm stuck. I'm still paying market rent, and I need to speak with, DC Housing Authority. Fill out, not even a voucher, but at least a for local something. Okay, because in the district, you only want people to pay what I see, you only want people to pay 30, 40%.
right, yes. Okay, so if you need to get in contact with the housing authority, again, we could probably take your information, and we're a sister agency, and we can reach out to them to help bridge that gap, that you're mentioning.
I'm reaching out.
Okay, again, no promises, but we can at least, hey, we have a district resident, former district employee, the disabled. Also, have you reached out to the Office of Disability? Have they been able to assist you?
I spoke to them. I went to this building that we had on for jobs.
Okay.
That's difficult as well. Yeah.
Okay, well, again, we'll take your name, your information, and we'll try to assist as best we can. Okay, thank you for coming out, sir. Appreciate you.
Notice that your front door, the end line, that you roll it up, 815, staff difficult to keep closing the front door of the village.
So this is not my home.
I know.
Here with the homeowners,
Yeah.
that they may need to take. We appreciate you. I know we need to make sure we let the housing finance agency know that they're around. Maybe out of compliance, I don't know, but thank you so much. And we don't want to make it any more difficult for our residents that have some challenges. All right? Appreciate it. No, thank you. We appreciate you, bro. Thank you. Okay, I think we've answered all the calls in-house. You want to go online? Okay, take the first one.
We have SM online. You've raised your hand. I'm going to allow you to unmute and to ask your question. Again, the individual online with the initials S and M, you can,
Oh, there. Can you hear me now?
yes, we just asked you to say your name, what wards
Sure.
you live in, and how long you lived in the district.
Suzanne Moran, Ward 3. I've lived in the district for 27 years. I also am on the board of an organization that provides affordable housing. We have 5 properties in the district. We've displaced slumlords and we've been involved in 2 TOPA arrangements. As I'm sure you're aware, accounts receivable have risen astronomically in the last couple of years, and the eviction courts are backed up 18 months to 2 years. It has caused all but, or most, if not all, banks to abandon the district. What is the mayor's office and the housing authority planning to do to encourage banks to engage in financing for new projects?
The question is, what is the mayor's office going to do to encourage the housing authority to fund affordable housing projects? Is that your question?
To encourage the banks. They're not interested in financing new projects. They're looking at Maryland and Virginia and they're skipping over the district.
I got you. So that's a great question. But I hate to say this, that's way above my pay grade. That's one of those questions that I believe that, I know that the mayor, the deputy mayor, and all the other housing agency heads are working on, as well as all of the experts. But I can't respond to that, unfortunately. But I do know that they're working on a plan because, that's part of our economic ecosystem. And we don't want to lose affordable housing. We don't want banks to not fund these projects. But I think that is something that the mayor and the development economic teams are working on.
Okay, thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, man.
If there is anyone else online that has a question, please feel free to ask your question in the chat or raise your hand. Again, I just ask you to raise your hand or to place your question in the chat and we'll share it with everyone here in the room. Okay, Ms. Briggs, I see your hand is raised. I'm going to allow you to unmute. Say your name, please, what ward you're from, and how long you lived in the district.
So good evening, everyone, and thank you so much, Mr. Gaines. So I do not live in a district. We were looking to bring an affordable housing project to the district from a business perspective with our Heart Your Home, focusing on older adults in Ward 1. The problem that we ran into was some of the older properties in DC do not have sprinkler systems. And so, of course, we can't get past our regulatory processes. Is there a process where the district is willing to help get these buildings up to code?
So DHCD, we fund affordable housing projects. And the way those projects are funded is through our RFP. And that's a competitive process. It is weighed, there are many factors, and that goes into determining how a project is funded. And for a project is yours, you would have to look at RFP. Now, there are other government agencies that could assist you. Like, I don't know if you've reached out to DDOE, Department of the Environment. They may have programs that could assist you with something of this nature. But that's just not something DHCD has a one-off that we fund to assist.
Okay, so I just want to confirm the acronym that was used was RCP and DDE.
I'm sorry, DDOE. They have grant
Oh, the
funds.
Department of Buildings, Department of Buildings. Is that what you're saying?
Well, the Department of Buildings are the ones that would issue you the permits for the sprinkler system, and I don't believe there's any exemptions, especially if your buildings are for seniors.
There are no.
But yeah,
No.
so to get assistance, sorry, go ahead, man.
No, to get assistance, do what again?
The only agency I could consider would maybe be DDOE, Department of the Environment.
Okay.
One second.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Gaines.
Thank you, ma'am.
You're
We
welcome.
appreciate your comments. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, request for proposals. I apologize. So in order to get our funds for affordable housing projects, multifamily projects, we issue what you call a request for proposals, where we ask the developers to submit proposals for our funding. And we have a criteria to determine whether we're going to fund the projects or not. Say it again? Sure. You mean for our RFP? Well, we have our RFPs on our websites. Now, if you're asking templates for the deals, no. Oftentimes that could be looked at as proprietary. Yeah. But if you're interested though, you know, we do have, you can talk to some of our team. We do have programs for small developers, whereas we're trying to help small minority developers get into the real estate game. And we can talk to you and help you out there. So if you want to, you can call us at 442-7200. And we can, help you out with it, talk to you. 442-7200. And our address is 1909 Martin Luther King Jr. Avenue, right at the intersection of Martin Luther King and Berry Avenue, Southwest, across the Lynchburg Bridge. Yes, ma'am. You have a question? You have to state your name and your ward. The Nay Spicer?
Yes.
What one? All right.
Yeah. It's here, with your one, so, up 25.
Excellent.
I didn't be zero, about 33.
Okay.
And actually, I retired from municipality. My question is, I have this flyer here about senior family residents and rehab program. And it says on this paper that you can get, well, you can apply for a grant of $60,000. But in my situation, I live in a great park in the historical house. And the improvements exceed $60,000. So is there another resource to obtain financing or rehabilitation for the store properties?
Yes.
So our single family program, you're right, we focus on roofs and accessibility, not just rehab, right? Our focus is around accessibility, helping our, people with disabilities or our seniors, age in place and navigate their homes. And it's 60,000. We may increase it slightly to about 70, 75, but we try not to go above that because we want to try to help as many residents as we can. And as you're aware, the price of wood and materials have gone up substantially. So that's about the limit of what we can really do. In historic districts, I'm not sure of the historic, preservation. Sometimes they'll get federal grants that you can ask about that can help you out to restore, homes to their grandeur. But I'm not aware of any other programs to help with, grants with historic, properties.
And Charles, I can add to that.
Sure.
Ms. Spicer, you said your name is Spicer?
Yeah.
The Office on Planning, the Historic Preservation Office has funding for very specific districts. I could connect with you after the meeting and encourage you to contact them. I'm not sure where you live in LaDroit Park, but I will behoove you and I can give you the contact information, like I said. To apply, they do have specific funding, and sometimes it is very costly. Sometimes in neighborhoods like LaDroit Park, Tablet Hill, and a few others, there are specific type of roof and facades that you have to repair, and they have a specific set of contractors that you have to work with. And so I would encourage you to check with the Historic Preservation Office. Additionally, apply for the single family program to see where one program may be able to cover certain repairs and improvements. And then if you need help with the roof, sometimes I've seen the Historic Preservation Office cover most of that, because again, these homes are quite old, and sometimes our program may not be able to cover that. But again, we can connect with you with the Office on Planning, Historic Preservation Office.
Thank you for the question. And I'm hoping you're enjoying that historical home, the main historic.
Yeah. Very clear.
Good.
Hard to keep the costs improvements, especially now.
Well, thank you so much, and I appreciate the question. And hopefully, if you stick around for a few minutes, we will get you the information to historic preservation. Be very online and get you their phone number.
Thank you.
You got it. Thank you so much. Anyone else online, Lana?
Yes, Auden, I see you've asked your question in the chat. I can ask your question here in the room, or I can unmute you and allow you to speak. You can raise your hand. I can just ask your question here in the room. So Autumn asked a question regarding HPAP. What's the guidance for people with notice of eligibilities who did not have a contract before November 8th and were not in the lottery?
So if you did not have a contract, although if you had a notice of eligibility, but you did not have a contract, and you were not selected in the lottery, you will have to wait to see if there will be a second lottery. We're not sure if there will be a second lottery because the first lottery used up all of the funds. However, the applicants of the first lottery have 90 days to close. And if there are funds remaining, then there's the possibility of a second lottery.
Thank you for your question, Autumn. I see another person in the chat, Miss Williams. Okay. I can allow you to unmute and also ask your question if you would like for me to do so. I don't see your question. Oh, Ms. Williams, you asked a question, how do you get help with affordable housing other than affordable dwelling units?
Yeah.
Our program is specific. Go ahead, Ms. Williams.
Say it again.
You can ask your question.
Oh, I was trying to see how could I get help with housing, affordable housing, other than ADU dwelling units. Can you hear
So
me?
Ms. Williams, I would encourage you to visit our housingsearch.org. That website has all of our the units that we've funded and the affordability of the units and the income requirements. So it's dchousingsearch.org. And then again, that's all of the affordable housing projects that we fund.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Any other questions? Okay. Well, I have a question in the house. What do you want?
Okay. Just one last question. Miss Melissa Rich asked a question. When will the list of HPAP lottery entries be released?
So we're working on that. And we'll have something shortly to the public. Thank you. Yes, ma'am, you have a question? Yes, ma'am.
For those who want to be a part of the next lottery, you need to have already signed up or started at or
So first of all, we do not encourage anyone to enter into a contract. What we've done with the lottery, we want you to get the lottery, to be selected in the lottery before you start looking for a home, right? We want you to have this requirement to go through the 8-hour course with one of our community-based organizations, because we want, these are you guys are first-time homeowners. We want you to be educated and knowledgeable of what it means to be a homeowner, right? It's not a renter where you can call your landlord. When you're a homeowner, you know, if something breaks, it comes out of your pocket, right? Unless you have one of the A10s or something. But so we require you to go to the 8-hour course. And that 8-hour course not only teaches you how to be a homeowner, but also teaches you the financial aspect of buying a home. It's the home buying process. Because you're a first-time home buyer, right? Oftentimes first generation, first-time home buyers. So we don't want you to, we want to educate you so you can be very knowledgeable of the process. We want you to help get your credit clean. A lot of folks, they go to our CBOs, you know, with a low credit. And, you know, in order to be lendable, you need a certain credit score. And so our community-based organizations will work with the home buyers and teach them how to kind of clean up their credit, to get in good standing, work on some debt, also to save some money to be a homeowner. So we require you to take an 8-hour course. And once you've done that, you got your certificate, you're going to get a notice to continue, right? That's going to come to DHCD. We're going to have the lottery, and then we're going to send you to one of our HPAP administrators who's going to give you a notice to proceed and say, here's your ticket. This is the amount of HPAP you will get, right? Because that when you're in the lottery and you're selected, you will get that money. That money is now obligated from our budget, is for you. And you're going to have up to 6 months from the time you get that notice to proceed to find a home. So that means you're not rushing, right? You know, currently everybody rushes to the door, they take whatever comes. And what we're saying is first-time home buyers should have some time to find a home. They should be able to find a good lender. You know, markets, look at some different interest rates. Try to find a good agent. So part of that lottery process is to empower that home buyer.
so I questioned about alert. How am I alerted that the funds have become available?
So our budget is loaded. Well, first of all, when you can see our budget through the DC government budget process, you can see how much money is in HPAP. And then our budget is normally loaded October 1st to October 15th. And so it's contemplated, you know, we're going to probably hold a lottery at the beginning of most fiscal years. And if you work with the community-based organizations, if your email is accurate, they'll probably communicate with you. Okay,
Thank you.
you got it. Yes, ma'am.
You're saying this last time around, we're encouraging them to go into contact with me, knowing that you could cover all. That's not.
Well, let's take the last part. HPAP is generally never fully fund everybody. So
to go under.
Let me-
Otherwise, they weren't going to.
Okay, so-
The lottery. So
Okay, I disagree with that. Let me just, if you can, the directorship, but that's not true. We didn't encourage people. What we try to do is accommodate folk who had already been done. But the directorship, I'll let her speak. This is our director. Just coming in. Welcome, director.
Good evening. So, we changed the HPAP to a lottery process. HPAP is not a right. You don't have a commitment for HPAP until you get a commitment. If you entered into a contract in advance of getting a commitment for HPAP, that was on you. There's no instruction to get into a contract without a commitment, right? So people that had done that, unfortunately, they had contracts that they took risks on. And because of the communication, there was a transitional provision for the lottery process that said, if you happen to have a contract that is ratified, which is a risk that you took on your own because you had no commitment for HPAP, HPAP was not funded and the program was not open, but people entered into contracts anyway and spent their money anyway. No, it should never have been done that way. It's a risk that people took on their own. And year after year, particularly when the 202 was given out, people still took that risk. And there were some people that were left out, right? So going to the lottery process actually gives people a commitment that says you have money to go forward. You have 6 months to buy and look for a property, and you know that you have that money. So there's no rush to the door. There's no expending money without a commitment for HPAP, right? Because now you know, here's my commitment. My NOE says I can now proceed, look for 6 months, and there's no question of whether I will get HPAP or not, because you know you will. And you also know that you have a choice about which lender you want to use because they know you have a HPAP commitment and it's not a lender that sort of knows how to get into the process or knows somebody. You use any lender with the best rates, the best timing, whatever. You can use any agent, not just agents that know how to use HPAP and have been doing it for 20 years. It's now more competitive. You have the power in your hand. And then you can decide not to take that risk because you know that you have the HPAP commitment for 6 months. And you can look for your house for as long. In this provision, there was a number of people that took that risk. Though it does say on your NOE, it says this does not guarantee funding. People still in yes, go spend on appraisals, get into contracts, and also spend money when they don't know they have a down payment assistance commitment. So in this transition, because there was feedback about the timing of the information, and there was a significant number of people that were advised by their agents to go ahead and take this risk and spend money, then we did something that tried to make sure those district residents were not left out in the cold. So we did a transitional provision that said, if as of the date of the letter that you got, it says, if you have a current NOE and you are in a ratified sales contract, which is a risk that you took on your own, because you don't have commitment for HPAP, and you could have very well run to the door and still not have money for you, right? So that's a risk everyone took. We tried to address that. And so that was transitional because, like you said, people were doing that, even though it was wrong in a way, because there was no commitment for it. So we said, go ahead. We're going to let you in if you have a ratified contract and to clean out all of the situations where you were advised to do this, right? So at that point, if you had a ratified contract and an NOE, you were asked to submit your paperwork by November 8th. And you know what some people did? They got that letter because all the NOE holders got that letter. They took that date and then went and got in a contract between that date and November 8th. So a whole bunch of people that didn't even have contracts as of the date of the letter they received ran and got their contracts. So there was a whole nother bunch of people that didn't have a contract on the date of that letter. And it said it's selected because now we don't know how many people that is. We had to lotterize the people that had submitted their ratified contracts on November 8th.
Good
I
question.
think that's as clear as I can be. Right?
That last year,
I'm sorry, can you state your
my
name?
name is Tim Smith. I'm in Ward 6. I've been there for about 9 years. So last year, everything was already planned. I guess while you were preparing,
What was already planned, sir?
so when the HPAP funds became available, this is how the process went. So the growth system all that. And that's what was set up. So now we come into 2024. At what point in time, you as a director make the decision, you know what? I think it's a really good idea. They'll go to a water system. Who made that decision?
And
When did it
there was a number of people that made that decision.
Okay, so why did that happen? Almost 2 weeks prior.
Right. So what you're trying to say is the communication should have been longer and more in advance? I hear you. I may even agree with you on that. But please tell me, what would have been the best time frame for you to receive that communication in advance so that it would have made a difference? Because the contracts that I'm seeing are as late as the end of last year when the program closed. So, this is factual. So people entered into contracts as soon as the program was closed last year. So at what point would have been the best point for that communication for those people that still took that risk on June 30th or whenever the date it was that HPAP ran out of funding last year?
So what was the latest date you had on that contract you saw?
As early as the closing of HPAP, when the
When was
funding
that?
ran out last year.
When was that?
I don't remember the exact
Do you
date.
remember roughly the month?
No, say it was June. Now, so what is it?
Generally, it's probably like January.
Maybe before that. I don't know.
Right,
What
so
is the
say
point then?
January, which just means those.
Okay.
So between January and November,
Mhm.
let's just split the difference.
Okay,
Call it
again,
probably May or June.
okay. Mhm.
So who's ever planning that in that office for HVAC,
Mhm.
anybody should raise their hand and say, hey, you know what? These are the problems we've run into for the past couple of years. People go on a contract, they don't have guaranteed funds, they get put in a very difficult position.
They put themselves in a very difficult
So,
position.
so we have a problem here. We should probably do something different.
Correct.
So now we're gonna fast forward to,
And that difference was the lottery.
right, so now we're gonna fast forward October 25th.
Uh-huh.
Whose idea was it then to go, you know what? I got it. Let's use the lottery.
So you're assuming a lot about the process?
Anyway,
Right. So you're assuming a lot about the process?
no communication, it's not transparent. Somebody made a decision behind closed doors. You know what? We're gonna change.
Well, I will say this, it wasn't behind closed doors. There were several stakeholders involved. There were a lot of people involved in the decision. It was a difficult decision, but ultimately, I think that the lottery, again, puts the power in people's hands to make the best choices for them going forward, that they know they have a commitment of down payment already when they get into a contract.
So
Okay.
again, I agree with all of that.
Okay.
The problem is who's ever responsible for doing that. How can it have come to the point of October 25th?
Mhm.
And the word got out, there was gonna be a lottery.
Mhm.
And I was on the call
Mhm.
to listen
Mhm.
and even ask the question, was there gonna be a lottery? No response,
Mhm.
nothing.
Mhm.
And there was an email Friday night going out to everyone, guess what, guys, there's gonna be a lottery.
Mhm.
Why did that happen?
I don't know what you want me to answer.
Again, who's ever in charge
Mhm.
royally screwed this up. It needs to be held to task for whoever voted. So those stakeholders, those people, I'll be sure to get my board chair, come
Okay.
make sure. My name is Tim Smith. I will be there. And
Lovely.
make sure that we all have these
And we should
conversations.
hear from you, exactly.
So this is so bad.
Okay, I hear you. I hear you that the communication, but I have several times repeatedly, I hear you that the communication was not as best as you would have liked it. Okay, it was not a good communication. I've heard
So
you.
who's responsible
Is there
for the
anything
communication?
else that I can say to
So
you?
who's responsible for the communication?
I'm responsible for the
Why
communication
did it happen?
because there was a lot of stakeholders, a lot of processes that goes. We talked to a lot of different stakeholders and there was no best time to do it. Is that a good enough answer? Or would there ever be a good
Sure,
enough
that's not good
answer?
enough. It's
Okay.
never good enough.
There's never a good enough
A
answer.
month ago would have been better, 2 months ago, 3 months ago would have been better. anytime besides 2 weeks before the actual funds were made available to everybody else, because that's what everybody had done.
I hear you.
Everybody had done that years ago.
I hear you. And you know what the good news is that every person that had a ratified sales contract that submitted by November 8th was funded.
They weren't, and that's not true, and this is where you need to stop. If you look at the data, just remember my name, I'll be there.
Good, I'm happy. I think you could. I want to hear from you. And I want to hear from
Just
you.
said something, again. not
I want to hear
digital.
from you.
You need to have
Is
a
that
separate
true?
meeting, you need to do it
It's true.
immediately,
Okay.
because that's not.
So this is from the data that we got, from the data that we got.
Exactly.
I'm not going to argue. I heard you. I heard what you said. I'm going to repeat what you said. You said that the communication was not good enough. I apologize that the communication was not early enough. Okay? From the information that we have, every application that we got that was a ratified contract by November 8th, we funded. If there's somebody that did not get in, please let us know. That doesn't mean you have funding then.
Telling me that if I. get-
I'm, sir, would like to move on.
No, here's the
You'd
problem.
like to move on.
I appreciate you acknowledging what I'm saying, but it's not good enough.
Okay, but there's no answer that I can give you. That's good enough.
We can make it right now. If you're saying that you failed on the communication side, I agree with you, you did. Now, if I can prove that emails were sent and not confirmed or received about the data, who is responsible for taking that in?
We'll be responsible if there were communications that were sent that did not get received, that were sent.
So all the people that you just said that were approved who have ratified contracts and submitted before November the 8th, you're saying we're funded. So if you can prove that the ones that were submitted and you did not confirm receipt or they were not entered into the lottery, are they going to get funded?
No, they will not get funded because they did not submit their application on time.
That's the problem.
Can we move on? We'll be all night, and I think that,
But let her answer a question. Go ahead.
Of October, in the beginning of November, nobody would confirm receipt, and you're saying that they.
What do you mean you submitted them on the end of October and the beginning of? I'm sorry, Mr. Smith.
Yeah, let's have the meeting, you're gonna have the data.
Where the HVAC, you could, and we had these ratified contracts, their NOVs were not funded, and they did it before the deadline. And they were under the impression after that email went out that they would be funded, that it was.
There was gonna be a lottery, it said.
Right, but you just said that everyone who submitted before then with a ratified contract.
Everyone, I'm gonna say, okay, so if there's a few that you are saying that we got, that for some reason did not get a communication, then please let me know about that, okay? My understanding is that everyone that submitted a ratified contract by November 8th, that had a ratified contract on that date, thank God it was 211 people, and we were able to fund every single contract that we received. So if you're saying that there's someone out there that submitted to the email and did not get something, and there's evidence that they submitted it and we received it, you have return receipt requested and something like that, we will look into that. Okay? But that's not like a conspiracy to leave someone out.
A resident of the District of Columbia for 55 years. I was born here. I was born in Bloomingdale area. Now I moved because of parking I'm still in Ward 5 to the northeast side. So I'm very passionate about this. I am also a realtor. And I have to say the communication was a little off for the HVAC. But the information did get out. It was out. And I was speaking directly to someone from the office, and they told us, if you do not have this in by the 8th, you will be funding the lottery. So that I'm kind of.
Go in the 8th.
Yeah, yes. So that information was done. So that's why I'm just trying to say for this, I don't know who they are, what they are.
Right.
But that information was given out. It was given out at the time, so I'm not disputing, but it was kind of taking this communication.
I acknowledge that, the communication could have been, you know,
Yeah.
more long-standing. I honestly don't know that that would have made a difference to people.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
they now have spent months of getting into ratified sales contracts without a commitment, right? So I'm not sure it would have made a difference, but I do understand that it was, when we opened, people were expecting it on October 1st, and it was a change. So I do understand.
So, ma'am, before you leave, I'm gonna give me the information, we'll check, as the director said. You know, is any transition or anything that happened that's new, there may be one or two, you know, things that may not go 100% right, but if you can submit to us the information and prove it, and then I'm gonna tell you, we scrubbed that list. We scrubbed it. And I think agents were playing games to some extent. I'll be real honest with you. And some of those, some folk did not have NOEs, and we confirmed because we got the NOE list from our administrators. We confirmed. And a lot of agents were, and that email that went out on the 25th was just sent out like hotcakes, and everybody was just submitting contracts. So the HMAP team vetted all of those contracts. I mean, we vetted every one of them. And there were a lot who didn't meet the criteria. They did not have an NOE. And if you didn't have NOE, we didn't even look at you. Because if you didn't have NOE that was updated, you didn't meet the requirements. But I don't want to keep going on and on, and I know you, so I'm going to give you my information for you to contact me directly. But the director made an excellent point. We did everything we could to fund everybody. And we funded 211 loans at over $30 million. That's why I say that was a success. Everybody that met the criteria from the information and the data that we had, we funded. Now, if there are one or two that are one-offs that, you know, hey, somebody missed, we'll talk to us and we'll see what may be the next steps. But we're very confident that 211, all of them met the requirements, and we spent over $31 million on those folks. I think that's a success story for the District of Columbia. The mayor's commitment to HVAC, the city council's commitment, and the agency's commitment. But I'll take your information and we can talk afterwards, okay? Thank you so much. Yes, the young lady here, how you doing, man? Beautiful sweat.
Thank you.
How can I help?
I'm not doing great because I just learned tonight that contract. Was it not?
Let me just take my sheet. Yeah, so, right. So I just, first of all, I just want to give you a moment. Are you okay? I know this is disappointing.
Makes me speechless. Housing insecure because I'm living in the home that my parents had when there was no visit. And so I was depending on this in order to buy the house that my parents had had since the early 60s. And so I was advised not to apply. I went through everything, all of the things I took all of the classes. I was advised not to move forward with the first until we knew what was happening.
And that's the correct way to do it.
I did that. And now the mortgage company is threatening foreclosure. And then to make things matters worse, I was hit by a car earlier this year and I can't work full time. So I really was depending on this to come to me and to find out that I think I should have moved forward.
So I would say that you should not have moved forward. This was a provision that was made because there were so many people that went at risk and kind of did not follow but they were all at risk of not getting funded because HPAP the funding was not guaranteed. And that was really irresponsible for people that did get that advice to move into a ratified contract without knowing what the funding levels would be, or even if the program was going to open, right? So you did get the right advice from that perspective. I want to try to work with you. Their HFA does have some down payment assistance programs as well. HPAP is not the only down payment assistance program in DC. And so I'd like to work with you to figure out what are some other potential down payment assistance program. Like I said, there are some with HFA, and there's other ones out there, so that I don't think that you're out, but there's not, we only fund, I mean, HTAP has typically a large demand. We fund on average, I would say between 200 to 280 each year. So it's never guaranteed funding, right? So there's always people that unfortunately don't make it because we can't fund everyone through HTAP. But again, like I said, I do want to try to help you figure out if HFA's open door system can help you so that you don't have to wait. And there will be another lottery. And the way the lottery is supposed to work, this was sort of a compromise in the middle because people complained about the sort of short notice and communication. But you are supposed to go through the process. You're supposed to get your NOE. And we have, just so you understand, in the district, there are about 800 NOE holders, between 700 and 800 NOE holders at any given time. The funding levels only allow us to fund between 200 to 283, depending on like how much people are using, right? So that's where it fluctuates. So if we have everyone coming for 202, then there's less people that we can fund. So just so you understand that HPAP is not like a guarantee. But with the lottery process, you get a guarantee. You know that you were selected and you get a guarantee for that 6 months. And there's no question about whether or not you'll get the funding or not.
Well, you just call the notice of eligibility.
Well, 6 months to buy once you get, so to get, just so people don't, to get an NOE, you go through a CBO to apply to be eligible for HPAP, which you said you did already. Okay. So we'll work with you to figure out if Open Doors or some other down payment assistance, and Lionel will shepherd you through that process, okay? Thank you for sharing with us.
So much.
I'm not.
Gentleman in the black, yes, sir. Sure.
First of all, I want to thank you guys for coming out.
Thank you guys for having us
Yeah,
here.
coming out to the community, to the council, and the executive. Being talk.
Absolutely.
My name is Lester Tuffy. I'm the executive director of the DC Coalition for Housing Justice. We've been around for a little bit more than 10 years or so, advocating for affordable housing. I just want to change the question in the discussion with 3 minutes about affordability. There are a couple of elements in the room. First element is number one. I know the DHCD is about preserving, creating affordable housing. Do you think that the agency itself is doing the best it can do when it comes to creating affordable housing, preserving affordable housing? Because in the last 40 years, housing advocates have seen a little over 40,000 people just places, go other places in the city. We call it Ward 9. That's the first question. I got one more question. Okay. Second, before you ask the first question, give me a few minutes, just be patient. The second question is, number two, is there any discussion within the walls of DHCD, within the executive branch, within the council, within the mayor's office about rent control, strengthening rent control? I'm a native Washingtonian. I know I'm a native Washingtonian. I've been here all my life. I've been through the Maryland Berry period 4 terms, and at no time that I can recall was there any discussion or talk about the lack of affordability in this city. We went through Mr. Bowtie, Anthony Williams. We went through the bicycle guy, Adrian Fenty, and now we have Mayor Bowser. Okay, now the Bowser administration made a commitment. They made a commitment. I look at the website, a commitment of 36,000 units. As I understand it right now, the administration is only creating maybe 13 affordable units within the guise of, well, correct me if I'm wrong, within the district, because affordability varies. You go to one district, it's a different median income. You go to another district, it's a different median income.
But the main question is there any discussion within the executive branch, within the council? And I really wanted to present this to Council Member White, okay? But I'm directing it to the executive branch here, because that's what we're talking to, the executive branch. Is there any discussion on the part of the branches, on the part of the branch, to talk about strengthening rent control? When I say strengthening rent control, I'm talking about new development that's popped up all around here. And right now, none of us can afford, the average rent for a rental unit is $2,900. Okay, so that's number two. Number three.
I'm gonna
I'm just-
You might have to repeat the question.
When I call these are elephants that are in the room, that we want,
So, do you mind if I answer one?
The third one, let me finish. Okay, just bear with me, I'm finished. The third one is, okay, we have a newly elected president. Trump administration.
I can't answer.
Do you think that the Trump administration will have any effect in keeping with the spirit of creating those so-called 36,000 units that the mayor talked about? I know you may not be able to answer the question, but we have a new administration getting ready to put in office, and as we know it, the Trump administration has not been, let's say, it's not been on good terms or good rapport with the Bowser administration. Those are the three questions. Hopefully, you're going to answer those three questions. And the last one.
We have a 3-minute.
Okay.
We really do have a 3-minute max. We gotta get out at a certain time. I mean,
Okay,
that's not-
the last question.
but
You had several situations in the city where DHCD and the Housing Finance and other agencies, do you guys meet to talk about the conditions in housing? Talk about, do you guys have a central meeting? Because you have one building where you had a tenants living in deplorable conditions, 1443 Columbia Road Northwest. The owners didn't have a license, okay? Then you had another building where, there was absentee developers who don't meet. So I'm asking you, you guys meet to talk about, asset management, because that's what DHCD is supposed to be about, managing these multi-million-dollar projects. Thank you. My name is Lester Tuffy, Executive Director of DC Coalition for Housing Justice. Thank you for allowing me this 2 minutes to talk.
Thank you, Mr. Cuffey. I appreciate all of those questions. I'll try to remember them. The last going forward. So the last question is that the housing agency partners do meet all the time and talk about how we're going to move forward and prioritization and how we can create and preserve affordable housing on a regular basis, new programs, how we can work together. Now, with regard to the specifics about property conditions, we do really rely on the DOB and complaints that go to the Department of Buildings around property conditions. So that's where those complaints go. Now, if it is a property that is funded by DHCD, we will go and look and see what you're talking about. But ultimately, the enforcement division is with the Department of Buildings. So we will typically refer to the Department of Buildings if you have issues. And we'll get on the phone and we'll advocate, particularly if it's around affordable housing units that have been funded by DHCD. Okay, so that's one. With regard to the Trump administration, I really don't know what's going to happen. I do know that our mayor is a professional and she is 100% all for DC. And she's going to do what she needs to do to make sure that DC is in a good place, regardless of who the president is. That I know. I don't know any particulars about conversations or what's going to happen. I don't want to say, I don't know what he's going to do or what his plans are. I know what he said. I know what he said historically. And I know that a lot of what he said historically hasn't necessarily happened. And that's my hope. There's a lot bigger fish to fry, I think he has. So, in with regard to the funding that we get, Department of Housing and Development is funded largely by Housing Production Trust Fund, which is local dollars from the district and not from federal dollars. We do have federal dollars, community development block grant and home monies, and we use some of that for HPAP actually, and community-based activities, but not a lot of that is going into the production and preservation work that we're doing. So from that perspective, I'm hoping that, what we do does not get affected. Does that answer those questions? Now, with regard to the units, we have created 36,000 units and probably more at this point in the district. We are on task to create 12,000 affordable units by 2025. I will say, as someone that lives and breathes affordable housing and wants to create as much as possible for the district residents, because it's even hard for me or my staff or district employees to find affordable housing, that we do everything we can every day to come up with affordable housing solutions, to be creative, to stretch the dollars. We do it every day. That is the mission of our agency, and that's what we do. So we live, breathe it, talking. Now, with regard to rent control, we happen to have our rent administrator here, and we do have the rent control policies and procedures. And do you want to talk a little bit about rent control? Okay. Well, just because Mr. Coffee asked, but we do have rent control. You should look up our rental accommodations division.
I'm asking, is there any effort to put just, we are expensive rent control because the current rent control is the shell. Because I used to work for the rent accommodation. I said I used to work for, you probably don't remember his name is John Hampton. He was the rental director under Marion Derry. The current rent control law is a shell. That's why we have the current affordability problem right now. I'm asking, I know, because for approximately 12 years now, there's a bill sitting right there in the council that will strengthen rent control, that will get rid of some of this existing loophole. Number one, the law says any building after 1983 is exempt from rent control. That's why we have all this development and all these little units are going into market rate. Okay, the market rate in DC right now, I've seen it. The average income in DC went from in 1980, it went from 60,000 to the average income, median income right now in DC. If you're in Northwest, $100,000. If you're in Ward 2,
So Mr. Cuffey.
So now what I'm asking.
So let her answer. You just let her answer.
So Mr. Cuffey, what you're talking about is policy.
Yes.
And that's not what I do. That's not what the DHCD does. We administer the Rental Housing Act as it's written. The ones who are going to affect policy are going to be the stakeholders such as yourself. And I'll even say on the housing provider side and also council. So it seems to me that if you have concerns about, or suggestions, ideas about how rent control should be amended, that's where those energies should be directed. I'm an appointee of the mayor. I'm hired to administer. I'm not here to make policy. Of course, I have opinions and ideas on that. I'm not going to necessarily share that in this forum.
Right.
But just to give a little background for me, there's certain exemptions from rent control, what Mr. Cuffey is talking about. So there's a legal presumption that every rental property is under rent control until my office grants an exemption. And so if you're exempt from rent control, that means then you can charge market rate prices. The most common exemption from rent control are if the property, the mortgages or the rents are government subsidized. So for example, if DHCD has given a loan and it's income based for the residents, that property will be exempt from rent control. Or if it's district owned.
And that's because it has an affordability covenant.
Already built in. I guess one of the second most popular, maybe even the first, as Mr. Cuffey was alluding to, any property that was built after 1975 is exempt from rent control. That's a policy decision that council, the district residents, that we've made. And, if you think it needs to be changed, then you have to start taking action, having discussions with your council member, meeting with other stakeholders. Meeting even with housing providers to decide what we want as a society, as a city, what we want rent control to look like. Rent control was designed to sunset, which means that over time, it was supposed to go away.
We've decided as a city that we want rent control to continue. And so the city council keeps renewing it every 10 years. We just renewed it recently in 2020. So if we want changes to rent control, we need to come together, start having these hard discussions about what this looks like. How does this impact investment in the city? You know, these are all things that are tied together. And just to go on, and I guess the third most common exemption from rent control for small landlords. If you own 4 or fewer units in your individual name, you can be exempt from rent control.
So, go ahead.
Oh.
How much time do we have? Where?
Time.
So I just want to take 2 or 3, and then I want to make one statement, because I saw a comment on the HPAP up there, and I wanted to emphatically say that's a no, but go ahead.
Can you talk a little bit about, obviously, in the last 20 years, I think one thing DC has went from kind of more of a sleepy kind of town to now, it's just bustling. It's, like I used to work at DC Housing Authority, and I know in 2003, I will always say that DC price per square foot probably was one of the cheaper major cities in the entire world. That is no longer the case. So when you're talking about affordable housing, I know we're adding units, or the city is adding units, but can you talk a little bit about the challenges that you've had as far as keeping existing housing stock affordable? I know a lot of times when you have these, especially at the beginning when you had a lot of subsidy, I may have wrong terminology, but basically when you had down payment assistance and things of that nature, one of the challenges were the individual got that down payment assistance, but there was no covenants to say the equity share to keep those units affordable. But then somebody got $500,000 down, maybe $100,000 down payment assistance. In 5 years, they didn't have to pay it back, and then they ended up selling a unit at market rate. So now that unit that was affordable is now sold to a market rate. Person who's going to reside in the ID is no longer affordable.
So your question is?
My question is, what have you seen, the challenge that you've seen in keeping existing housing stock affordable, and what new mechanisms that you guys have been able to potentially create?
Well, we're looking at sale leaseback options. We're looking at land trust options. We are extending affordability covenants to 40 years plus so that they stay in place. We are putting liens on things that at least if you have gotten DHCD funding, that if you sell it for market, we get our money back, and so that we can put it in the next affordable unit. So we have the Housing Preservation Fund where we're trying to add covenants to units. So we're doing everything we can.
Well, I wasn't insinuating that you weren't. I was just trying to
those are some of the new things.
Anytime.
Yeah. And you're the last question.
So I have a question.
And we'll stay afterwards if people have individual.
I have a question, but you have a comment. I'm going to say that I get all of you for your intelligence always during this discussion, very grateful just the witness you guys maintaining your camp and all once in time. With you. I'm so very grateful for the inspiration that you're trying to highlight.
Thank you so much. The one thing that I do, I see somebody on the chat, my spidey senses said turn around at that moment. And it said, my agent, once again, is telling me to enter into a ratified sales contract by December 1st. So I'm going to tell you, again, the process will be all current NOE holders will be entered into a lottery. And then you will get a notice to proceed when you are pulled for that lottery. At that point, you will have 6 months to find a house. This transitional provision, due to the short communication, was had because so many people went in advance of any commitment on HPAP. That will not happen again. That was a one-time thing. So you can enter into a contract, but you may not get selected through the lottery. Go ahead. What do you mean? What they should not.
You have to find the funding 100%.
You can use it. Here's the thing. So what I would do, and I'm not giving financial advice, but if I entered into a contract, HPAP wouldn't be my only choice for down payment assistance, right? So, because if I don't want to lose my money, and I don't want to lose my housing inspections and appraisal, then I should have a backup plan to HPAP.
What you gonna do?
We have HPAP. All right, thank you guys for coming. I was hoping to get your ideas on how to spend the funding, but I hope we answered your questions, and thank you very much.
Thank you so much.